In 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And welcome everyone to this episode of the Real Leaders Podcast. Welcome everyone to this episode of the Real Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Edwards. Joining us today, we have Chardelle Moore, the founder of Motivational Moore. Chardelle, thanks for being on the show today.
How are you, King Kevin?
I am fantastic, Chardelle. Now that I'm with you, and you sent over your new album that just came out. Tell us about this new album.
Oh, Inward Awakening. Oh my goodness, where do I start? Inward Awakening is a multi-genre collection to really inspire people to unleash their inner power. And creativity is so powerful, King. It puts and pull something in you. And when I wrote this album, it was truly a symbolization of my continuous inner revolution. And I think the beauty about arts and self-discovery and leadership, when you embark on a journey of just higher consciousness, higher self, you learn so much about yourself that you can't even imagine. And that's what I did, creating this body of work, really being able to infuse my love for motivation and storytelling and creativity and just be me and empower people to just be themselves unapologetically.
I love that. I love that inner revolution.
Inner revolution, that's what it is.
Deep.
It's deep, King. Inner revolution. It's when you start to really look within yourself and say, who am I? You know, and I did a lot of soul discovery. In 2019, I left my job as a TV anchor at the Fox affiliate in Baltimore, and it was time to renew my contract. And I just felt like I had to jump. You know what I mean? And there's time periods in all of our lives that we can't really explain it. We just feel like we need to do something, you know, that's beyond what I say, the physical world, meaning something of meaning and purpose. And while I was there at the television station, it was literally the perfect job that I needed for the time. But I knew I wanted to do something bigger, you know, and that's that inner revolution when you take that time to really discover yourself and you do the things that your soul really wants to do. You can't even explain it, but you embark on this path. It's so beyond powerful, and you're learning every single day. Real talk.
I can't agree more. And what's very inspiring about this too is that, you know, the average or the typical listener listening to this has those ideas.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But, you know, a revolution always has an enemy. It has obstacles that you have to overcome. What were some of those obstacles in order to take that idea and bring it to fruition?
The biggest obstacle that I faced on this journey is nothing external. It's myself, my own negative thoughts. Can I really do this? Right? And to be honest, I think that's the biggest obstacle that we all face. It's not the external world. It's really those internal things. Am I good enough? The self-doubt, the insecurities, the negative thoughts. So literally, I had to motivate myself. And I do this every single day because I'm human and it's tough to be a human, to believe in my soul, passion, and mission. And that's what I encourage anybody who's listening to this to watch, who's watching this. We all have these things that we can't even explain. You have these ideas, these philosophies for a reason. Be bold enough, be courageous enough to allow your magic to exude to the world. And that takes courage.
Absolutely. There's no fear without courage, right? There's no courage without fear.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how deep did you go? Like walk me through how you found that meaning. What were some of the questions you asked yourself? Where did you go? What did you do? How did you help unlock the key to motivation and motivational more?
I started asking myself daily questions, and I think that is really important. I started asking myself, what do I really want to leave behind in this journey of life? And I realized, especially somebody who's very spiritual, that I wanted to leave something of impact. I've always had a gift to motivate people and to inspire people, but I realized that even that gift that I had to do that with my own self. That's the crazy thing about this. So it's like, I'm this person that can motivate people, woo! But I realized I was lacking motivation when it came to my own self, right? So even understanding that, understanding the gifts that I have, and also understanding the shadows that I need to work on, because we all have that. We all have, brilliance, but we also have darkness, right? So when you start to ask yourself simple questions, what am I passionate about? What do I want to leave behind? What is my soul fuel? Soul fuel are those things that really ignite your soul. And I started to realize, like, wow, I'm super simple. Like, the things that I desire
Sure.
are like simplicity, right? I love nature. I love consciousness. I love music. I love storytelling. So the things that I love, why don't I create a hub and really exude these things to the world?
Mm.
That's self-reflection, that's self-awareness. It's deep. It's deep, bro. My
Well,
allergies.
when you speak on a wavelength that's just so energizing. Like you never, I like to tell people, I never know who's going to show up on the opposite side of the screen. And when we had our pre-introduction podcast call, there was just a connection there. And I love people who exude that energy, out into the world. That's what we need more of. We need more positivity. One of the things that you do is motivation now. And part of that word is motive, right? That's the crux of that word. And motive means, what is the reason you do something? You said that you found out you were much more simple than you actually probably thought. People are always complex, trying to make these things out. There's so many different questions, but it became very simple. So what was the reason you are doing what you're doing right now?
Wow. Your questions are always on it. I love it. To be honest, to leave something bigger than me. Simplicity. To leave something bigger than me and leave impact. Because, human beings, we're always trying to figure this thing called life out. And I believe in the power of inspiration. You see, when the mind can expand, right? And you can really connect with yourself and realize that everything I need, I already have, that breaks so many things within yourself. You really open yourself to the abundance of life. Like, I am already whole. So I realize that I have this calling to empower people and to empower myself to realize the magnitude of brilliance that we carry. Because for so often we dim our light for whatever reason. We live in lack. We're not good enough because A, B, C, and D. And these thoughts literally brainwash us. So for me, my purpose that I feel like I'm being called to do is to realize, wow, we're already whole, and walk in that path unapologetically and shine our light, right? So even with this whole network, right? When you allow yourself to be yourself, naturally you connect with other people who are on similar vibrations. So it's bigger than us, right? And if you can leave inspiration, if you can leave that legacy, what more can you ask for?
It's powerful. Not much. Not much.
And we do it in different realms, right? We do that through the arts. We do that through science. We do it through spirituality. We do it through media. We do it through the power of creation. And that comes from looking within yourself, connecting with yourself, connecting to the spirit and saying, wow, what do I want to leave? What's the legacy? How do I want to impact the world? These are the change makers. And I believe that we're all connected. It's deep.
No, it makes sense. And I just want to bring the audience in here because you're on this wavelength right now. And we want to bring them to become enlightened. Where were you when you were working for the news station?
Absolutely.
On a normal 9 to 5 day, right? Or a normal career person.
Yeah.
You can do all these things. You can be immersed in arts. You can exercise every day. You can read scripture. You can do a lot of these things, but it's still begging the question of who are you? And it's very difficult for people to maintain that positive energy on a daily basis. Where were you when you were working for the news station, and why did you make this change?
Wow. To be honest, when I was at the news station, I was in my own personal growth journey. But this is the thing that I want to tell people. No matter where you are, you can embark on a journey of higher sense of consciousness. You don't have to leave your job to do that. what you have to do is look within yourself to do that. Because even when I was at the news station, the thing about life, you create yourself. So even in no matter what job I was always myself. At the news station, people used to always look at the news to see like, what's the vibe Char's going to bring? What is Char going to wear? What is she going to say? And I was so authentic to myself. Like people always ask me, you working at a news station, do they tell you couldn't do this or do that? Never. I never had that problem, because when you're so connected to who you are, naturally the universe has to respect that. So I never had problems like, oh my God, am I losing my identity? Because even the content that I was doing like lifestyle content, and I was our traffic anchor. I never did hard news and stuff because I never wanted that. So you create your reality. That's the thing, But when I would leave the news station, I would spend hours every day in my subconscious, connecting with myself with music, nature, watching motivational speeches, videos. I was so into like exploring myself, right? So it was like during the day I would do my news, do my lifestyle anchor stuff. And afterwards, it was like exploring my soul. And I would do things that would soothe my soul. And when it was time to, like I said, to renew my contract, I just kept getting this thing like, Char, you love creativity. You love personal development. Why don't you start your own lane, right? And it was hard to leave that, right? The stability, all of the stuff that comes with that. But I had to jump. And that's how I started Motivational Moore, a multimedia and communications company elevating the human consciousness. And literally, King, I started this production company to produce my production ventures for music, for film, for speaking, for events, for partnerships, because I always had my own thing on the side. So I worked in, TV news, and people would hire, to do speaking engagements all over the country. And I would do my poetry and I would do all these things. I always had my own thing. And I said, you know what? It's time to really step into this next chapter of myself as a creative, as a leader, as a motivator, and literally create a hub for my principles, right? But I'm going to be honest with you, entrepreneurship, it's so rewarding. It is so challenging, but it births things in you beyond the physical dimension. It births wisdom, grace, patience, beauty, because it's like nature. You need the storms and you need the sunshine to really see who you can become. So even through this entrepreneur journey, it's not even about the money or the success. It's like the person I am becoming, and also allowing myself to be open to the ideas that I want to put out in the world. Because I used to think like something was wrong with me, because I'm like, I want to create this conscious and empower the world and do it through creativity to ours. And I'm like, is there a community for this? And this is the thing. The more I started to get in tune with who I am and saying, hey, I'm just going to be me, I naturally attracted those environments, those people, those resources who are also on the similar wavelength. And that's what I encourage the listeners out there. Whatever your dreams are, whatever your goals are, go run unapologetically. The world is abundant. The world needs your ideas, because only you are you. I can't be you, King Kevin. You can't be me. So that's the thing about leadership. We have to empower people to become themselves, because what you can do at your highest vibrational frequency, nobody in this world can replicate that.
Chardelle,
I'm passionate about this.
Chardelle, you have so many good ideas. And I think what good artists do are they're able to articulate and present their ideas that attract and resonate with other people. And, through motivation, through music, through your love and passion for what you do, you've been able to create almost a new genre. I'm listening to the album. It's motivational, it's music. And I think about how I asked you what your favorite genre was. Mine's probably rap. And so I think about like People Under the Stairs, Gangstar. I think about all, Tribe Called Quest, and how rap has changed and evolved really in 10, 20 years, and how different it is today. It's because of these new artists that are coming on, and they're seeing different perspectives, and all life is just a bunch of remixes. They're
Come on.
remixing music. They're remixing their things. They're putting their ideas and influencing the world. How do you perceive art in the work that you're doing?
Oh, absolutely. Art to me, King, okay? Art is the reflection of life expressed. For me, as a multi-genre artist, I look at art as life, right? And when I create, because I'm a poet first, even how I made Inward Awakening, literally, this is how I would do it. I would get a vibe and I would just go write. And I would allow myself to express myself. And then I would get a beat in my head. And that's how I would take the lyrics, put it on a beat, and do the magic, right? And the reason why art is so beyond powerful, art allows us to be free in a way that we can't even imagine. That's the beauty about, music. That's the beauty about storytelling. And one of the most powerful things artists can do is to be themselves and allow their art to be, shown to the world. Because I had to admit, King, when I was creating Inward Awakening, I had so many mental battles because my art is so different, right? But I realized I'm different. I'm a person, I'm very eclectic. I have multiple vibes. So even with my album, you can realize that, we have the hip hop, we have the Afro beats, we have country, we have spoken word. And that is the thing, Kevin. In one person, there's multiple beings in them. We have been conditioned to think we can only be one thing. Okay, we can only like rap music, but we can't like country, but we can't like this. We can only and that's just not with music, that's just in life in general. So what art does, art allows you to break these barriers that have been created by the Matrix to allow you to just be free. And that's the thing with this Inward Awakening. Anybody who's listened to this album, they always say, you have created this whole new genre. But if you look at creation, every single thing we see was created. Everything we see was a thought. And I truly believe I'm trailblazing this new lane, intersecting art and motivation to empower people to really start opening their mind, right? And opening their spirit to realize that, wow, I can do this stuff. Because the thoughts, King, that can come into our mind, that can sabotage our greatness because of our own limited beliefs and trauma. It's so sad. I really believe some of the most powerful people we will never know because of thought, because of the things they went through. So with my music and with my art, it's like taking away those thoughts, realizing, owning that power. When you're gonna listen to Inward Awakening, my album, there's something for everyone. There's gonna be a time period when you're listening to my works and you're gonna be like, yo, you know what? I can do this. That's the beauty about creativity and artistic expression.
Absolutely. And you're not going to resonate with the whole world, but there's going to be a community of people that are going to connect with you and to be on the same wavelength.
Absolutely. There's going to be a community. And this is the thing about energy. Energy is so powerful. It's not created or destroyed, right? And when you're connected with people, immediately, when you and I had to do that interview prior, I just felt the connection because I vibe on energy. I can't even explain it, right? So energy is so beyond powerful. So this is what I encourage people to do, because a lot of people have these great ideas and they're wondering, is there a community for me out there? There is a community for you, but you have to be yourself. Sometimes we're trying to force yourself into these communities. But your thing is your first step to even, instead of worrying about community, it's to really be in tune with who you are. That's why self-reflection and self-awareness is so critical when it comes to higher state of consciousness.
I love that. And folks are getting a little physics lesson today. You cannot create energy nor destroy it. It's powerful, but it's simple, right? And it makes a lot of sense. And I think there's just such a great crossover between what you're saying and kind of the leadership and business realm. I want to give you an example real quick, if I may, Chardelle, and I think you'll like this one. There's a little story about a mother, a daughter, and their donkey, and they're going from village to village. They're trying to find a new home, and they go to the first communities. And they start getting rocks thrown at them. The people don't like them. And so they say, oh, hey, here, take this bread. And they took the bread and they still continued to throw rocks. And we said, okay, let's go on to the next city. Go on to the next city. And then the community keeps on throwing rocks. And they're like, what is up with these communities? So they say, here, take my hat. And they take the hat and then they continue. They don't like the hat. And they're going to keep throwing rocks at them. And then by the time they get to the next community, they look at their donkey and they say, before we go in here, we're going to leave this donkey. Maybe it's the donkey they don't like. They push the donkey off the bridge into the water. They go into the next community and the community still doesn't like him. So the moral of the story is, Chardelle, is if you try to please everybody, if you're not living a life of congruence, you're going to lose your ass. And so that's the moral of the story there. So I think, leadership, when it comes to that perspective, there's many companies that are always looking at competitors, trying to be like them, trying to make the same pricing, trying to make the same descriptions. But really what it comes down to is being unique, being yourself. And if you can create that culture within your community, it's going to reflect in your employees and your products and services as well.
100%. Even when I started Motivational Moore, going back to simplicity, I said, what am I selling, right? Because I'm creating these different forms. And of course, people are hiring me to speak and this and that and boom, boom, form and all that and brand deals. But it came down to one thing, and it's energy. People buy my energy because nobody can replicate my energy, right? And that's the thing about leadership and business. What is your secret sauce? Your secret sauce will be you. Like you said, we're worrying about the competitors for what, right? So that's the power of creativity. I love creativity, as you can see, right? So when you allow yourself, especially as an entrepreneur, and I encourage entrepreneurs, that secret sauce that you can bring to the world is you. Run it unapologetically. Right?
Here's one thing I want to ask you about. And this is with a lot of artists or influencers, if you will, if that we have on the show. And it's something that was told me a while ago. And the question is this: do you believe leadership is a sign of leaving things better than you found it? Do you think that leaders, good leaders, if they were to get hit by a bus tomorrow, would be deemed as good leaders or bad leaders based on how the performance of the company does? And so I remember a young leader challenging me when I was younger. I want to leave this company, and I know this company is going to do better than when it's with me when I leave. So have you ever thought past that, past Motivational Moore, to see, really, how do I sustain this movement and energy? What are your thoughts on that?
Ooh. I'm Caribbean, and one of the things that I like to say is, you're bringing in the good questions, Noman. Yes.
Everything, Ari.
Yes, everything. Let me tell you something, okay? To put that question and to answer it very simple. What I even think about leadership just in general, to lead is not about self. It's to leave impact that is bigger than you. If you're thinking on a perspective of, okay, I'm a leader, and without me leading the way, that's ego, King.
Right.
You should be able, wherever you are in this journey of life, you do your best for the people, not for you. That's what a leader does. A leader brings something in somebody else to make that person bring something in somebody else. It's not about you.
That's powerful.
Leadership. That's remove the ego, okay? And that's one of the hardest things for us to do as human beings, to remove the ego, right? And say, okay, what I want to leave behind, I got to put myself aside and let me impact others.
So powerful. I'm not going to attempt to replicate that. That's just so beautiful.
Yeah.
But is the ego found in fear? Is that what you have to overcome, or are those two separate?
Well, this is the thing about the ego. The ego in one way is a good thing because there's dualities in everything in life. Without dualities, there's no life. So even for somebody like me, for motivation, who I believe in inspiration and this is not good energy, the negativity is there as well. We wouldn't be human. Life wouldn't be able to function without dualities. Dualities is essential with a higher state of consciousness. But when it comes to, the fear, a lot of times the things that trap us is we live in a lack mindset. So we think, oh, if we're not, like, let's say for a project or something, if it's not a revolving around us, then the project is not going to be successful. That's not what a true leader does. That's dictatorship.
Mm.
That's a totally different thing. Leadership is connection through people. It's teamwork. It's the ability to empower overall, not by one person being the focal point, right? So bringing something in you, this conversation, the people who are listening, who are watching, it's going to touch them in a way that they can't even imagine, right? And they're going to use that inspiration to touch people in a way that they can't even imagine. That's how we make the world a better place. Because who are we? This is just physical, right? So we got to move beyond this individualistic type of thinking and really try to empower on something that is beyond us. That's where spirituality comes in. That's where higher consciousness comes in. Take away, the religion, the race, these things were just created. Everybody's entitled to what they believe, and that's awesome. But who are we besides the physical? It's spirit. It's deep. So this is the mission that I'm on, which is it's something that I'm like so passionate about. And sometimes I don't even have the words to articulate it, but the energy is felt, and people who are on similar vibrations, they understand it.
Right. And that's something that to be said about that too, right? Sometimes you just can't articulate what you're feeling, and it'd be an injustice to do so.
I'm telling you, because remember, some things in life are beyond words, right? So let's even look at a situation, right? Because I'm all about vibes. Certain things you don't have proof, but you can feel it. You can't even explain it, but you can feel it.
You know what's interesting? I had a conversation yesterday with a doctor who may come on the show. We're trying to figure out for a booking, and he did this research on halos. And he was trying to, this is a scientist, doctor, high level, so it's a lot to articulate. But the point is this: when you're connecting with someone, your brain waves are putting out different frequencies, alpha waves, beta waves, delta waves. And when two alpha waves come together at the same time, it creates like a centrifuge in a circle, hence a halo. And so he's trying to kind of, bring this to the scientific community. It's a very interesting topic. So I think you're onto something. And the question I have for you, you've been mentioning higher consciousness a lot.
Absolutely.
And it's not a vague term, but it's a term that we use a little bit too much in the way we describe things. Conscious consumer, higher consciousness, conscious power, inner awakening. What do you mean specifically by consciousness? How do you like to define that?
Wow. I would say for me, consciousness is being present. Like being present and being aware of what is important. We all have our different views of what that is. We all have our different views on life in general. But to me, simplicity, higher consciousness is looking at life in the present moment and what is really important with that, right? So I try to operate and live in that wavelength of just higher consciousness. Am I just doing this to do this? Or what is it? And that's the thing, because even with that needs balance, because you can go in on a rabbit hole with this type of stuff too. So that's why balance is essential. So I'm learning through my own inward awakening journey the importance of having higher consciousness and also having balance, because it's easy to get so tied into consciousness and inspiration and this and that you can even lose track, right? So even being able to bring those worlds together and realizing like, okay, I want to make the world a better place. I want to discover myself. I want abundance, this and that, but I also need balance, because if we're too focused on, oh my God, this conversation is so deep, but if we're too focused on just like, what we want instead of being, we can lose life. So understanding and making the most, King, out of this moment, to me is really important.
Being present in the moment.
Present in the moment. Yeah.
That's so true, right? And so like often we're not in the moment.
We're not.
We're on to the next meeting. We're getting notifications on our cell phone. We're thinking about what we're going to eat, tomorrow. How important is the environment that you place yourself in, Chardelle?
Very important.
Like, I want to think about that real quick. Like, I've heard interviews with people, and whether you're in South Korea, and all you're thinking, or North Korea, and all you're thinking about is hunger. People that are in high pressure jobs, they're thinking about their financial security day in, day out, and it's no way to live. So they're not present in the meetings. How important is the environment for you?
Your environment is so important because your environment shapes your reality, right? So that's why it's very important to have boundaries. And I believe in something called energy vampires, literally are people in situations that try to suck your energy in. So you have to be very mindful of whatever energy you entertain, your environment. So your senses came, very important. What you're looking at, okay, what you're listening to, even what you're eating will have an effect on you. This is all your environments. And remember, there's some places people are not even, they don't have choice when it comes to their environment, okay? But most of the people who are listening to this has some type of control when it comes to their environment. So we have to be very mindful of our environment, and the stuff that are not good for us, we have to be willing to cut it out. Senses, the 5 senses, very important.
And like what you said in the very beginning, it's not necessarily the external factors. It's the internal factors. It's the mind games we have to play with ourselves. Do you think that there are like different stages of hierarchy, like a hierarchy of needs, like what your primal motivation is? And if you get that, then you can move on to something else in like layers?
Absolutely.
Or how do you perceive?
Absolutely. Well, I definitely think when it comes to your own journey in life, right, it comes with wisdom and it comes through life experiences. Who we're going to be in 5 years can be very different. Who we are going to be after this conversation can be very different. But what I realize is the more you like discover yourself and expand your mind, the higher you go. And you start to realize what is really important for you. And only you can define that. That's the thing. The external world will tell you A, B, C, and D. But what truly makes you happy is what life is really, really about. And that's even through my own journey. I've realized, even creating this company, how simplicity is really important to me, right? When I really think about it, things that I desire is very simple, So allowing myself to be myself, less external validation, more in tune with who I am. And I think that births phenomenal leaders. A leader has to be willing to do self-awareness and self-reflection, because you can't lead others until you lead yourself. I had to learn that through my own Motivational Moore journey. I knew I had gifts. I knew I had something beyond powerful to give to the world, but I had to be willing to lead myself first.
And let's not forget the people that help us along the way.
Oh my goodness.
Who are some of the people that have helped you?
Oh my, I have so many people who've helped me, from my parents. I'm originally from Dominica, the nature island of the Caribbean. I came here when I was very young. And to see my parents, like, they're both teachers. My dad just retired. Yay!
Congrats, Dad.
He just retired. And the sacrifices that they made, my brother and I, to have a wonderful life. Even the opportunities that I had through my media career, the people who've hired me, my cousin, who's my best friend, just people who believed in me. And that's why belief is so important. That's why inspiration, my professor, Professor Fallon, who told me, Char, you have a gift of inspiration. You have a gift of motivating people, and that's the thing. We can't make it on this journey alone. And it's so important to connect ourselves with people who even tell us we can do it. Little motivation can change your life. It's crazy.
Like a little validation for kind of what you're doing as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like, I've been like training myself. This is a beautiful conversation because I'm literally learning something from this conversation. Through this journey, I've been like training myself to like, Char, you don't need any validation from the external world. You go and do this mission, you got it. But now, even from this conversation, what I'm realizing is, you know, we need people that support us. So maybe validation is not necessarily the word, but maybe it is the word, right? And looking at even in the word validation in a different perspective, not looking at it as something that is negative and you know what I'm saying, but also looking at the blessing that comes with that as well. That's deep, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think there's any shame in reaching out to somebody and asking them, hey, what makes me unique?
Exactly. Because a lot of stuff that with our own selves, we don't even really see it, right? So sometimes we need other people to say, hey, you're really good at this. And you're like, wait, really? You know? So I think I'm even realizing, working on that through my own journey, because I'm very independent. Like I have trained myself to like, whatever I want to do, I got to get it. I got to get it done, you know? So I'm even allowing myself to even ask for help. That's something that I struggle with, even something as simple as asking for help. But
see, this is interesting. This is really interesting because like when I'm listening to your music, you know, it's you can do anything, you know, you are powerful, you know, you get over, you know, whatever else. It's very motivational, and you are basically telling someone positive things, very positive things that they haven't heard. We have so many people that go through life that have not heard positive things that about them. And everyone has a special gift, a special character. So it is interesting that, you know, when you're saying, oh, I haven't really either reached out or maybe I was trying to defy people from telling me good things. I need no external validation, but that in essence is also what you're doing naturally.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And let me tell you another thing. Woo, this podcast, we're getting so deep. Human beings are so complex. We all
are. God, yeah.
We all are. So even for me, I'm like, go conquer the world, go do this. I got you, yay! And then for me, sometimes to even ask for help, I'm like, oh my God, don't help me. I got it, you know? Yeah. So it's like, and that's the beauty about self-discovery and life, that you are, when you're open to this journey of life, you're learning every single day. So one of the things that I am learning, King Kevin, is allowing myself to get help. Because in order for me to be the best leader that I can possibly be, I need help as well, right? So that is the beauty about self-discovery. You understand your greatness and you also understand your weaknesses. And the thing is, nobody's exempt. We all have this because it's part of the human experience. There's certain things that you can do that I wish, boo, that I can do. I just cannot. So that's why I'm going to be like, Kevin, I need you for that. And there's certain things that you're like, Char, I need you for that. And that's the beauty about connection, right? In the worlds, that we need each other.
And it doesn't get easier.
It does. No, it doesn't. Oh my goodness.
It only gets like harder almost.
It really is. It's so true. It's so true. Especially like when you really decide what you want and you're like, okay, I'm committed to this calling. I'm committed to this path. Even though there's a certain acceptance with yourself that comes with it, it's also more challenging because you realize the stuff you don't want and that you don't want to settle for. And also to just the journey of life. The journey of life. I think beyond anything that I do, I really just want people to realize, like, you know, life is a journey and everything we need we already have, but life does come with things and nobody's exempt to the human experience.
Do you think people are afraid of being committed to something for that long? Committed to that purpose and meaning?
Yeah. I think commitment is hard for people in general. I realize that one thing is the same for everything. So let's take the notion of commitment, right? Commitment, whether that's relationships, whether that's a job, whether that's a commitment with yourself, human beings struggle with commitment because commitment takes patience. And naturally, just how we are, we want things like this. That doesn't exist, right? So
No.
it doesn't matter what it is. So anything worth having, you're going to have to be willing to be patient and put in the work. And that commitment is very scary for people. So that's why if you look at life as a journey, and that's what I have trained my brain to do, to make the most of this journey, because we don't know how long we're going to be on this realm for, right? So if you look at it like, okay, let me just take it one step at a time and do the best that I can do in this step, then it makes the journey a little bit simpler.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And I want to give our guests like an actual example because you've just released this album. How satisfied were you with this album at the end of it?
Oh my goodness. My proudest body of work I've ever done.
Okay.
I've worked with the world's most leading media companies, okay? BBC, Fox, CBS, the CW. I've been an anchor, a reporter, a producer, but there's something that you cannot explain in words when you birth your own works, when you create from your soul. And this took so much courage. It took 2 years to complete this collection. And I took my time and I had to move past those negative thoughts, the challenges that come along with creating from your soul. And that's the thing. When you're doing things from your soul, sometimes you get the most resistance. It's the dualities. Isn't that crazy when you think about it?
Yes.
But it's real, right? So it took so much courage to do this, and I'm so proud of myself. I was like, you know what? It does not even matter. The fact that I did this is so beautiful. And I encourage people that whatever your dreams are, be bold enough to do it, because the person that you become, that you allowed yourself to be yourself, to release your own creation to this world, there's no money, there's no accolades that can take away that. It's your own magic.
Exactly. And the people I'd like that to reach are the people expecting numbers, waiting for external validation, waiting for when they start something to rack up the viewership. And I think about some like the top artists of all time and why they are unique is because they're unique. When you think about Fleetwood Mac, you think about Kanye West, there's someone to transcend that time here and there and now, while the others are just reacting based off of what's happening now. And I had the argument the other day. I was like, I don't know if Tupac and Biggie, if they were still around today, would be as popular as they were back then. And so you think about that and you go, why is Kanye West so special? I think it's because he's literally just himself. And he's that dude that is so unique that it will forever be. Yeah.
That's how it is. And that's timeless art, right? Timeless art comes when you are yourself. and as much as we're trying to make this thing so complicated, it's very true. You know, I mean, I haven't had a discussion and I had to like go in with my parents because they're like, oh, why don't you make this type of music? I'm like, this is my art. How is somebody else? And I'm like, if my own parents can say this about my own work, and they're not saying it in a bad way, they're just saying it in a way because that's how the world conditions you to believe that you have to do this because of this, you know?
Oh, I like it.
Exactly. And it's like, I don't want to live my life like that. I want to create things that are beyond powerful because I chose to create them. Because my works, like I said, is going to live on beyond me because my lyrical content is so beyond powerful. And that's the thing that I really just like had to really come to a place of acceptance with myself, that this is my art. Whoever is going to see it is going to see it, whoever's going to like it. But I'm creating something that will ignite the mind and elevate the soul through my own creativity.
Interesting. So I have two questions. How do you keep an open mind?
Yes.
And how do you also say no to people?
Oh, wow. Your questions are just so good.
I'm excited.
Yes. I would say, how do I keep an open mind? I trust my soul and I trust my spirit, right? So I think keeping an open mind is very important, right? But saying no is a part of boundaries. And I had to learn, I am still learning this, King Kevin, okay, how that I can't say yes to everything. And part of me saying true to myself is understanding that certain things I cannot do. That is a process in itself, especially as a person who is naturally, exudes light and always wants to help people. But I realized that if I want to pour into myself and be the best person that I can be for myself and even to help others, I have to be willing to say no. Yeah. I'm still learning that.
And that's very powerful, like really powerful. Like the ability to keep an open mind while also keeping boundaries is a very special art that not that many people have and are still working on, including myself. And so, Chardelle, we've talked about a lot, talked about keeping these open minds, talked about being yourself, being unique, finding that motive, the reason for doing something. And throughout this journey today, I want you to define your definition of a real leader.
My definition of a real leader is somebody who is willing to trust themselves, who's willing to make a difference in the world, in the life of others. Someone who's bold enough to be brilliant, who is kind, hardworking, and wants to leave a legacy that is beyond the physical dimension.
Well, Chardelle, I know we said you can't create energy today, but I felt like some was created. Maybe it was redirected today because it was a fun, engaging interview, and I was entirely locked in for the entirety of this episode for Chardelle Moore. I'm Kevin Edwards, asking you to go out there, trust yourself, and always, folks, keep it real. Thanks, Chardelle.